Stolen hat, denied accountability, and missed ride. We have some Reddit revenge stories today that crossed every line, and we are going to be rating them on a scale from 1 to 10 in terms of the revenge. Okay, so the story begins almost 7 years ago. I was with some pals out bar crawling, partying, all around having a great time. With me, I had my glorious Aussie hat. It worked with most of my outfits. I was glued to that accessory. Our night ended at the place of one of the guys who will from now on be known as Jay, and we crashed at his place. In the morning, we said our goodbyes and we were off to our own business. Except, as I remembered around 3 p.m. that day, I left my hat at Jay's place. I shot him a quick message to bring it with him to our next hangout, and I forgot about it. Our next hangout came, he forgot, and another, and another. Every time he has another colorful excuse as to why he forgot it, even if I messaged him profusely throughout the day for him to not forget this time. I offered multiple times that I would come to his place myself to grab it, but it was never quite the right time. And lo and behold, a few months after, he said he lost it. He was looking for it to finally bring it to me as I was such a pain in the ass asking for my hat back, and he couldn't find it. He, quote, turned his place upside down, but it was nowhere to be found. I said, okay, then I assume you will reimburse me for the cost? It was around $70, not that expensive, but still not an insignificant amount. And I loved the hat. He went off on me as if I was crazy. What the hell am I thinking? He had to pay for my hat. Am I insane? I can take that request and shove it where the sun don't shine. I, being not a very confrontational person at that point in my life, just left it pretty much at that. I brought it up jokingly a few times, poking at him whenever we were in a group setting, and he would be bragging about how much money he was making off of his gigs. He is an aspiring musician. As time went by, I started avoiding group hangouts whenever he would be there, and the group itself just slowly dissolved as we all grew up and started having more and more obligations and responsibilities, as groups of friends often do. 7 years passed, the group seldom had collective hangouts. A few members stayed connected individually. I stayed in great relationships with a friend called Elle. Some moved to other cities. Suddenly, one of the guys that moved to a city about 300 kilometers from our hometown heard 3 more guys are coming to a conference that would be held in that city and offered to host us all for an all-inclusive full week hangout, just like old times. We would play games, swim, basketball, drink, watch parody movies. We were all very excited. Especially Jay, who had a gig offer nearby to the city where we would all be going, and he could combine business with pleasure. Something worth mentioning is that Jay got his driver's license suspended due to a DUI, so he naturally couldn't drive. So in the group chat, Jay asked Elle how he was planning to travel. Elle said that I was driving and he would come with me. Jay also asked to tag along. I said, why, of course. Your fee for the trip is $103.50. This was very unusual as I never asked anyone for gas money, especially if I was already going in that direction. And even if I did, $15 to $20 is fair for a trip of that distance. Definitely not $103.50. Now, if Jay was an emoji, he would be that red, pissed off one. He would always get mad when things didn't go his way. He started arguing about the pricing, so I itemized it. Gas money, tolls, stolen hat, denied accountability for years. It all adds up to $103.50. Now, the whole group was laughing and making fun of him in the chat, and that only pissed him off more. He said he would not pay that ridiculous price and that I better show myself in front of his place on the day of the trip if I know what is good for me. Mind you, usually when you are asking someone to drive you somewhere, you meet him at his place. But he had a bunch of expensive amplifying equipment and his guitar for the gig, so he said he couldn't do that. I had to come get him. I stopped replying in the chat, so he probably assumed the deal was done. So on the day of, Elle and I just drove off. We had an amazing time, laughing in the car, debating Jay's reaction when he found out that he was left to dry. Soon after, when we were 45 minutes out, Jay asked in the group chat when we were coming for him and why we were late. Elle wrote back on my behalf as I was driving that we were already on the road. At first, he jokingly asked, when did I grow a spine? And then said, but seriously, when are you guys coming to get me? Then Elle sent him a funny photo of me at the wheel. That made him angry. Caps lock was on, and to cut out the very creative set of insults, we were asked to come back for him. Like the drama queens that they are, all the other guys quickly got in the chat and stoked the fire, which only served to make him even more mad. I was quite impressed how he could call Elle me, and at the same time, type that fast and creatively. That lasted for about 15 minutes, during which he sped up appropriate stages of grief. I extended him an olive branch. Pay your dues, and we will come back and get you. He tried to haggle for a lower price, but as I said, that price can only get higher for the longer we drive, as the distance we would have to return for him increases. He finally relented. He transferred the full amount into my account. Now, this is the glorious part of my revenge. I sent him back $15, told him I was refunding him for the trip part of the charge, as we won't be coming back for him. Since I didn't really feel like it. I was laughing so hard I had to pull over as I felt I wasn't the safest participant on the road. He demonstratively left the group. So yeah, that happened this morning. His gig is in the evening. I have my reservations about him being able to make it, as taking the bus or train isn't really an option due to the amount of clunky equipment he has to carry, and odds of finding a sucker to drive him there and back are astronomically low. I just opened a new beer and it's not even 4 p.m. I forgot about his gig. Oh, not me feeling bad that he's gonna miss his gig. I mean, I have to just rate the revenge aspect. I think it was very clever to get the money, subtract the trip, and it's like, I finally got the money back for my hat from all those years ago. The revenge part, it's pretty clever. I gotta give you that. It is clever. I would say that's a solid 8. A solid 8. I just feel bad that he's missing his gig, as an artist, to get a gig and to not be able to show up last minute. But also, what happened to my hat? Where's my hat? Next story. I sent my ex and his new fiance a $1 gift for their wedding. So for a pretty quick background, we dated for 8 months. He proposed to me in private. Then I found out he was cheating, lying, and a whole bunch of other stuff. At the end of it, I was going back and forth between staying with him and his family and staying with my own family. He then turned to God, started going to church, went on some beach trip, came back and came to my place 3 nights in a row. We made love, and then he said he had to leave each night and get home. The following weekend, he broke up with me, claiming that maybe God would bring us back together eventually and that there was no one else, he just needed to work on himself. He then posted that they were dating 11 days later and engaged just 2 to 3 months after our breakup. We have been broken up for about 6 months now, and they've been together for that long. Well, today I decided to check his Facebook for some reason. He has blocked me, so I just searched his name up without logging in. I then saw the pictures. He had taken pictures of them together on the beach and some just of her, and posted them right after our breakup, meaning that they were still together while he was doing this with me. He also posted pictures of them in her apartment that he moved into immediately. I then saw a wedding registry for them, so I decided to buy them a gift. I just sent $1 towards their adventure fund, and I left a note saying, "Cute beach picture. I wonder when those were taken." Smiley face. Now, I consider this a form of revenge because he claims he's told her the entire truth about every single thing that happened, and because of the ways he treated me. It may be small revenge, but it's petty revenge. He's not very techie or good with his phone type guy, so I'm sure she will see the email for it before he does. This is subtle because it's a little sneaky, because it's very small, a little revenge, but for a fact But when his fiance sees that come in, she's gonna have a million questions that she will demand answers to.
I have a lot of questions. Number one, how dare you?
Who is this girl? What is she talking about? She made the effort to give us $1. Why is she asking about this picture? Like, oh, that $1 I think is gonna do, or could do, a lot of damage. Don't be a cheater. Oh, that's smart. Okay. But what if she doesn't see it or he does and it actually just doesn't lead to anything? It's got the potential. So I can't give it a higher rating because we don't know what's actually going to come from it. It's just the possibility of it could. So I'll say a 6. A 6. But if it did do what it could do, I would say that's got to be up there like an 8 or a 9, you know? Next story. My company tried to short me. I stole from them. Never suspected. Never caught. There's the whole story in the title. Disclaimer, the names and some of the situations have been changed to protect the identities, but the dollar and general nature of the situation is completely true. Background, a year out of school in the early 1990s, I secured a job as a business analyst for a large family-owned tech company. This business was located in the booming heart of technology at the time, and it was very profitable. As tech took off over the next decade, the company thrived and remained family-owned. What was a rich family and company became exceedingly wealthy with a valuation and net worth in the high 9/low 10 figures. I'm gonna throw up. That's a lot of money. The family that owned it was quite neurotic, very moody, and had a reputation as being very ruthless and greedy when it came to financing, deal making, and their employees. I truly believe this is what held them back from ultimately becoming a household name as a company. As I progressed in the company, I gained more and more face time with the owners. I worked on some projects directly with ownership that really paid off and gained me even greater access in their inner circle. Now, like a lot of people at the time, and particularly those who worked in tech, I was heavily invested in tech stocks. I discussed some of my investments and gains with ownership as casual conversation, though investing had nothing to do with my role in the company. That is, until one day late in 1999 when the owner came to me and asked me if I would invest some of my personal money. He wanted me to take big risks to see if they would pay off using $1 million of his own personal money. I was a bit hesitant, but still being in my late 20s and wanting to prove myself, I said I would. I asked for a written agreement where they acknowledged this wasn't my role in the company, was a personal matter between the owner and me, and to document my compensation for this side arrangement, which was 20% of all profits. Around the same time, and by working in the industry, I started to notice the weakness associated with a lot of tech companies. They just weren't living up to their hype and stock price, and some seemed like they were starting to run out of money. I had no inside information, just a strong sense of which companies were struggling based on my work in the business. Based on this sense, I started using both my money and the owner's money to short tech companies just after the new year in 2000. For anyone unfamiliar with shorting, it means if the value of a stock decreases, the value of the investment increases. I had a few long positions, but my overall position was very short. Since the owner wanted big risk, big reward, I used his money and obtained leverage or margin from the financial institution where I maintained both his and my trading accounts. The accounts were separate, but both under my name. Again, I documented this and gained consent. Well, both my account and his suffered some moderate losses in the first 2 months of 2000 before the bubble began to burst, and both accounts, but his in particular, began to skyrocket. Now on to ownership's pettiness. In June, the company began to suffer a downturn. We were still profitable, but since we provided tech services and products, we were not immune to weakness in the broader market. I had not informed the owner of my short strategy. He came to me one day and asked how his money was doing, saying he suspected it was way down like the general market. To his surprise, I informed him that while we still had some money tied up in options and shorts, but based on the positions I had closed, there was $1.35 million in cash sitting in the account that belonged to him. Again, I still had a bunch of open positions, which, if memory serves, were worth about $1 million on that date, but the positions I closed had yielded $1.35 million in cash sitting in his account, which was in my name. Mine. I'm wishing it was mine. The owner, either through ignorance or lack of attention, said, "Great, 1.35 million. Fantastic work in this down market. Will you please wire it to me?" I responded that I would, but would be taking my 20% of the $350,000 profit, or $70,000, before wiring him the $280,000. I also reminded him that I still had open positions that had yet to pay off or close, but I didn't state the amount. He, once again, appeared not to understand or comprehend the open position statement, but instead totally focused on and became incensed about my rightful claim for $70,000. He went on and on about how times were tough, I should just be grateful for the job, particularly at my young age, and the entire $350,000 was necessary for him and the company. I knew this wasn't true based on my position within the company. Worse, this was my first time personally experiencing the greedy and corrupt nature that served as the basis for ownership's reputation. Now on to the revenge. Since after 2 separate conversations, the owner didn't seem to grasp that the open positions would yield at least some income and thus additional profit, I decided not to mention it again. I sent him back the entire $1.35 million and continued to manage the open positions to the best of my ability. And here's the kicker. The owner never brought it up again. He seemed to think that the $1.35 million payment was the entire value of the account and never understood or remembered that open positions still existed. He never asked for records, tax document, or any time of audit or financials. Given the fact that he was dishonest with me, I didn't feel the need to disabuse him of that notion. Ultimately, after a bit more net gain, I covered all of the shorts and exercised all of the options for an additional $1.8 million. I worked for the company for 3 more years, and the owner never asked about it during my time there, after I gave notice, or ever since. I know it's a bit crass and even shady AF, but given his dishonesty with me over the $70,000, I felt justified in keeping the additional $1.8 million. I paid taxes on the gain and went on my way with a fantastic nest egg. Nobody has asked about it since, and I have only told the story to a few people. The final ironic cherry on top of this sundae is that during my remaining 3 years, I gained greater influence with ownership in position within the company because they considered me loyal for giving the $1.35 million back and not making too much of a stink of the $70,000 profit. Little did they know I got the better of them. The company eventually folded due to family disputes, but my understanding is that ownership walked away in a very good financial position. They likely could have been a much better and greater company had they not practiced the same dishonesty that they showed with their vendors, clients, and employees. And then there is a 2026 update very recently. He said it has been over 20 years since the original events happened. The original company folded, but younger, more honorable generations restarted a similar business. It's not as successful as the original business, but after some bumps, the younger generation's business has achieved a great deal of success. Nobody ever found out about my original misdeeds. The cherry on top is that because of my continued good relationship with surviving branches of the family, I occasionally do lucrative and mutually beneficial consulting for the family. I consider it a happy and profitable relationship for everyone. That gives me anxiety. Like, the revenge itself is a 10 in the sense of you walked out with like $1.8 million profit, for sure. You know, taxes also were a thing, but I couldn't, the risk of that terrifies me.
It's terrifying, yeah.
Like all the legality that goes into that if you ever got caught, and I don't know. The revenge is a 10, because boy did you walk out with some cash. But the risk is also a 10. Couldn't be me. I couldn't do it. All aboard, you know what time it is. We are hopping on the hydration station. Cheers. Drink your water. We officially got our mirror. We do not have a full-length mirror in our new condo, but we finally got one. We found this one at HomeSense for $4.99, and it has an LED light built into it. So it's freestanding, you can hang it or you can lean it. And then there's like 3 different settings for the LED light thing that's all the way around it. Fun. Next story, reported my old managers and now they're getting audited. I'm 30 male and quit my job in December. My then managers, 30 female called A and 60 male called B, very creative, were the main reason. Right after starting, I realized A was useless. She couldn't handle the basics of her job and left everything to the rest of the team, including rosters, event organization, and data correlation. All of these were explicitly highlighted as management roles. She also decided her working days and hours didn't suit her, so she reduced her hours and changed her days without telling her higher ups. Yet, still claimed her full-time salary. Manager B was just cutting down the months until retirement and didn't care. A few months into the job, Manager A started harassing me. I followed company policy and reported it since the harassment centered around my sexual orientation. I would love to say things got better, but nope. Last December, I had enough and I handed in my notice. I moved to another section in the same company. That should have been where it ended, but managers A and B weren't happy, probably because I took all the data sheets, roster templates, and files with me. These were supposed to be completed by management, and since it was on my files, it left with me. Both managers tried to spread rumors about me to my new boss, who thankfully read my resignation letter and the file showing why I left. Now, this is where I might be the a-hole. Those data files hold national statistics that must be shared annually with a government department and then published in the annual national statistics. After over a year of working on them, I knew the correct stats very well. I also knew that the 2024 and 2025 stats didn't match the records and showed high inflation in both numbers and money. Note, these stats help change legislation depending on certain fluctuations. So before I deleted the datasheet, I may have reported them to HR, along with email chains with managers A and B showing I gave them the correct stats when they requested them each year. Emails where they stated it's their role to manage the stats, and an email telling me to manage them. There is now an official audit being completed. Manager B has left suddenly and Manager A is currently sinking. Once the audit's completed and the false stats are proven, Manager A will have to face the music and will be liable to further action being taken against her. Am I the a-hole? No, you weren't the one who did it. Maybe do your job correctly. It sounds like a very serious job as well. So maybe do your job. The revenge. That's pretty good to get them audited. I mean, yeah, you're just exposing the truth, really. And these are big deals. These stats are, ooh, that's gotta be like a 9, right? Right? I feel like they would have been audited eventually, especially if they just kept that up, you know? Next story, I got revenge with orange juice. First and foremost, very important, are you guys team apple juice or team orange juice? If you have to pick one, truthfully, I love both. Delicious, both of them delicious, but I'm an apple. If I have the choice, I'm picking apple juice over orange juice. No, I like pulp in orange juice.
I don't like pulp. No pulp. Pulp isn't juice, all juice.
No preference, but I'm picking apple over orange juice. Let me know what team you're on. Before I begin, I know a lot of people have strong feelings about the tipping culture in the USA. While this story relates to tipping, that isn't the point of the story or the reason I felt like I needed to get revenge. With that in mind, back in 2011 or so, I was working at a local restaurant in my hometown. It was the only Greek restaurant in town, and it was small but a popular place. We had a lot of repeat customers and often were quite busy even on normal weeknights. It's worth noting that this is not an affluent town. One such regular customer was the Thompson family. I have no idea what their names are, but it's mom, dad, 3 kids, probably under 10 years old. Mom and the kids were always fine, but man, the dad in this family was so rude from day one. They came in 1 to 2 times per week, and every time this guy used to bark at me and the other servers from across the room about everything, leave huge messes, but worst of all, these kids slurped down 3 to 5 sodas each during their visits. While this in itself isn't a big deal, every time one of the kids finished their drink, which was every couple of minutes, the dad would yell at us across the room saying, "More soda!" It sounds ridiculous, but this guy was ridiculous. It didn't help that the guy also never left a tip. Eventually, the owner started offering breakfast on the weekends, which turned out to be quite popular. One morning, the Thompsons rolling in during the middle of the morning rush. Not these guys again. As they sat down, the intrusive thoughts won. Before they could order their sodas, I said, "Hey gang, who wants orange juice?" The orange juices were $3 each and didn't have free refills as stated on the menu. Everyone got orange juice. Per usual, every few minutes he would shout, "More juice, more syrup, more napkins." We had to go to the grocery store across the plaza. They drank that much juice. Each time I added another juice to the ticket. Eventually, when it was time for them to go, I looked at their ticket and saw they had consumed 13 juices between them. There was an item on the bill for $39 for just juice. Adjusted for inflation, this was about $57. I placed the bill on the table and left the area, not knowing what this person was capable of aside from yelling and being rude. I peeked around the corner, saw him looking at the bill, then the menu, about the juice, and then back to the bill. Eventually, they paid the bill and left. No tip, obviously. Never saw them again after that. Hope they are doing okay. Oh, that's fun. You know, that's just some like pretty harmless revenge, but clever and smart. And you know what? What an upsell for your restaurant. What an upsell. You just sold 13 orange juices, all by saying, "Who wants orange juice?" I gotta give them, that's a solid 8, you know, for what it is. Like in terms of the $1.8 million from the other story, it would be like a 2, but for what it is and the revenge, and you got, you know, you made a very good upsell. So let me know what your ratings were for these stories, you guys. Stay classy out there, stay sassy. I'll see you tomorrow.